Parenting is hard. Few of us feel up to the task. The world is shifting, quickly and dramatically. All of us feel the changes affecting our families. The stress and pressure can be intense. We are here to help sort the good and the bad, provide insight, and bring hope. Welcome to Brilliantly Brave Parenting. We're so glad you stopped by.
Hi, and welcome to Brilliantly Brave Parenting. We are getting near the end of Season 5. I am your co-host and partner in crime, Pastor Brad Mathias. I'm here with
Robert Beeson. Does this not ever feel like this? What was that SNL? Like what Alec Baldwin? Like
yeah, sometimes.
Yeah, it does. Well, we're excited about this episode.
Talk.
But before, is it called Coffee Talk? Something like that, where they talk really.
Well, there was all kinds of skits, you know. SNL is genius.
Maybe we shouldn't get into.
Yeah, we probably shouldn't go down the bunny trail.
Okay, so
Robert, wait. No, before you do this, I want to tell our listeners I have a new hat on, and they should go to YouTube and see it. It's a very Tennessee hat.
Okay.
Well, I've been wearing different hats almost every interview. You didn't notice because you were sick.
I didn't notice. I didn't notice at all.
Well, if you want to see my hat,
it's a fine-looking hat. I'm glad you brought attention to it.
I bought it right outside the street here in Columbia, Tennessee.
I actually do like it. It's valuable information for our listeners.
Oh, yeah. All right.
Okay, so one of the things we've been doing is just kind of asking each other questions, random questions, and we've learned some stuff about each other. And I've been stumped a number of times. So today, you are on the hot seat, Brad, and I want you to pick a number between 1 and 25.
How about lucky 13?
Who had the most influence on you growing up?
Oh, that's a deep question. Probably my mom. I know that's sort of cliche. I don't have the tattoo, but yeah, my mom is the most joyful, happy,
she is
kind person I've ever known.
Infectious.
Yes, perfect word for her. We call her Mimi now.
She's the only woman over 70 that can wear leather pants and
look good.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's 78 and she's
not afraid of anybody.
Full of it. You know, last night she went out to O'Charlie's to have salmon because she just wanted a salmon. Now, who does that in the middle of a storm, you know, at night in the winter, 78 years old. She was always put together. She's always got an outfit. Yeah.
Lots of glam.
She taught me, I remember she had a time of prayer and reading the Bible every morning of my life, like without fail.
Yeah.
That was...
No, I believe it.
You know, she just it was just a thing.
Foundational.
So, you know, we can talk about all the parenting skills in the world, but at the end of the day, I saw it.
Modeling it.
Yeah,
that's
she lived it.
I would have to answer that same question, I think. Out of the Gray was probably the most influential thing in my childhood.
Really?
Yes.
Well, you know, that's...
Actually, I say that in jest because they're in the studio with us.
I was going to say, that's kind of coincidental.
But I will say that I was a major fan. Before I got into starting my own label, I was a fan of Out of the Gray.
I told you before they got here, I was a little bit of a fanboy.
Yep.
You know, we've interviewed a lot of people and a lot of very famous, successful Christian artists, but Scott and Christine Dente, I was listening to their music before I was a Christian, so before I had anything to do with Christian music. So I'm kind of excited to have them in the studio today. Welcome to Brilliantly Brave Parenting, Scott and Christine.
Thank you.
We can talk now.
You can talk now. I know it's the most awkward thing. Like I
didn't know where to look. Actually.
I understand. We talk like you're not in the room, and then we just turn and say, "Oh, you're in the room.
Oh,
look." We're glad you guys are here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for making time.
That was daunting what you just said though about being
the most influential.
Well, not only that, but when you talked about how did you put it? Famous and
successful.
Yeah.
Well, they interviewed those people already
before us.
Yeah.
And then
we weren't talking about you.
Right. I know. I just wanted to make the delineation. And then we interviewed Out of the Gray.
Because nobody else would return our calls, and we just kept going down the list. No, in all sincerity, I was a huge fan of what you guys did, and I think really marked a different season in Christian music. I can remember listening to the first album, and the production, and Christine, your voice is just like, gosh, I hadn't heard anything like that before. And so you guys were very successful, and we're grateful to have you guys here and to because of the mark you made on Christian music. And now your kids are continuing doing music, and probably more importantly, you have parented well. And so we're glad for you guys to fix us, because we're not necessarily parenting well.
Well, we have gotten to the point where we have parented our children to adulthood. It doesn't always translate into well.
Yeah.
Most of it looks pretty good from the outside, but of course, we all know there are always the things that you can't see that, our kids are struggling as adults in ways that we wouldn't want them to have to, but there's no perfect parenting.
Let me ask you this, and this is kind of putting you on the spot, and I don't mean to, but if there was one thing that you could pick out, like, we really shouldn't have done that, like in parenting our kids.
That's not
before.
nice, man.
No, well, I'll tell you.
That's
I mean,
a great question.
because for me,
it is mean.
So
though.
helpful for people.
It is a little
for
rough.
people.
I'll go general on the answer,
Yeah.
and then Scott will get specific. How about
Okay,
that?
that's perfect.
Generally, I think we would both agree that we brought fear into our parenting
Mm-hmm.
that we would love to have known better about.
I so agree.
I don't know if we could have, but fear is the thing that I would have left out.
And to be a little more specific, as you said, I think one of the ways that it happened, and this relates directly to us being on the road, as young parents, we got on a tour bus with Julian when he was 5.5 weeks old, because our A&R executive's wife told us, babies are really you can transport them anywhere. They just need to be with their parents. And we were like, okay, that sounds good. Because as it turns out, this is the only job we ever wanted, and we finally got it. So we have to get on that bus, and we did. And so it started basically 14 years of doing just that, taking kids on the road with us. So we would we'd release a child, then we'd release a record, and then we'd get on a bus, and we did that. We did that for a long time. We didn't have 3 kids, but but there were But I think one of the things that we did, one of the things that happened early on was, we had this little traveling band, our family on the road all the time, and so it's it's a scary scenario for parents having infants and toddlers on the road, because it is what it is. You're roaring down the highway, on this steel bus with people that you'd probably rather not be with most of the time, but you're stuck with them for however many months. And there's this driver, and you put your kids in these bunks. There's no seat belts, except for the driver.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if he wore it, And so we did this for a lot of years. And so when we could control things, when we thought we could control things, we did things like we bought the safest car. We bought a Volvo station wagon as soon as we could. We moved into a cul-de-sac so we could see everybody that's coming. It's like we did all of this stuff for the perception of safety, and obviously some of it is actually good to do and true, but that anxiety
kind of permeated,
definitely leaked out, and
our kids picked up on it in their own unique ways.
And now they've manifested it as adults as well, and we talk about it because we talk about everything in our family, and we don't always come out smelling like roses, Christine and I.
Well, thank you for being vulnerable about that.
Yeah, so
I certainly deal with the same thing.
I mean, I think most parents struggle with that motivation of, am I parenting out of fear or love? And, Robert and I definitely flunked Parenting 101, and we've spoken at length about it on our podcast. But one of the things that's really cool, as I've sort of just talked with you a little bit, and I've read up on what you've been doing in the last few years, is that you guys seem to be moving into a season of your life where you're much more comfortable and much more at ease with yourself and with the whole idea of being parents of adult kids. Can you talk about that a little bit? What have you guys done in that area of life?
I think the groundwork was laid a long time ago when Scott and I started having to be part of groups that talked about our own stories, our own childhood. And how we were formed, and why we react the way we react or act the way we act. So I did a bunch of groups, and including Adult Children of Alcoholics, which is a 12-step group, ACA, and Scott too. And so to begin to disseminate our own stories and our own influences, I think has just swept us to where we are now in our 50s, and able to rest a little more comfortably with the process of life and aging, and let it be our teacher instead of the thing that we kick against and fight.
It's so that's so true. I mean, hitting 50 was like a wow, how do we get here? But now we're here. And so it's time to kind of start looking at things differently and taking inventory of things differently. So how has your parenting changed since you now have adult kids? I mean, some practical ways that you've noticed in your life, you've kind of adjusted.
Yeah, I think seasonally, and I think we all know this as any parents that have been on that have children that are getting a little bit older. There's the seasons of there's straight up, parenting, and you have to literally feed and clothe them.
Yeah.
When they're little, or else they won't survive. And then they not only do they play in the backyard, but they go out into the cul-de-sac, right into the neighborhood, and then that terrifying day when they drive away for the first time, and which is the root cause of all gray hair. I think children driving.
I agree.
But anyway, there's the parenting phase, and then there's what I think is as they get a little bit older is the coaching phase, and then they don't even want coaching anymore. Then to me, it's just the observing and listening phase, and we've hit the listening phase for sure. We still, because we've been talking with our kids the whole journey, they do still want to hear from us, but it doesn't seem to have the weight that it had to have.
That's such a hard transition to make.
It really has been, because we're both communicators. Christina and I are both communicators, so we long to affect change with what we communicate.
Yeah.
But I think the hardest, the people that are kind of raising their eyebrow the most are the ones that have been with us all the way, and those are our kids. And they're fantastic adults.
Yeah.
And sometimes when I'm arguing with my middle daughter, Karina, I'm like, man, I helped create this.
Exactly. You're seeing little reflections of yourself.
How do I fight this? I built this,
And she's perfecting it.
Yes, she's so good at it.
I wanted my kids to be critical thinkers and ask
Nailed
questions,
it.
not just fill them up with information.
Nailed it.
Well, you're going to get critical thinkers when you want to raise your critical thinkers. And so, but what's wonderful is that I'm learning so much from the challenges of my adult children, telling me things they're learning, or, challenging things that I taught them.
For a quick example,
Yeah.
one of our daughter, Karina, she's a social worker. She's getting her master's in social work right now. And she has reminded us, I either overhear a conversation or I'm part of a conversation where she's saying, Dad, you realize what you're doing right now? That's a microaggression. And really, it's racist as well. And I'm like, great. So I'm a little bit aggressive and definitely racist. She's like, yeah, pretty much. So yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's really great.
But I've noticed that with my sister and me and other parents whose kids are adults now and with their own ideas, that the choices are, you either continue to kick against and try to argue what your children are learning and changing, maybe changing some of their beliefs, or you learn from them and maybe kind of start to go follow them. It used to be that my girls would follow me more, and now I'm kind of following them in the way they're going, and it's humbling and wonderful because I'm keeping my beginner's mind. I'm trying to keep my beginner's mind up, saying,
and learning.
I don't know hardly anything. I know so little. I love that we could bring up our kids in a conservative, somewhat rigid, I wouldn't call it rigid, but just the conservative approach is helpful, as I've learned from Richard Rohr to children. And then when they grow, they need to find their own, rules or break the rules.
Yeah.
So I'm thankful that we were conservative in our homeschooling and in
Did
our
you homeschool
theology.
all the way through school?
Yeah.
Wow, that's a big undertaking.
It was exactly what I wanted to do, though, because fear, control, not all of it. Most of it was I wanted to be with my kids as much as possible.
Well, we were on the road for quite a bit.
That's
of it
true.
as well.
From a practical standpoint, it made sense.
Yeah.
But to release them now to their working out their own salvation with fear and trembling.
Yeah, great verse.
It is a wonderful and scary proposition. But what else am I going to do? Argue them to go to the church I think they should be going to?
Right.
I
Yeah.
don't even know if I like the church I'm going to. So there's something really
What
beautiful.
church are you going to?
Yeah, I know. Let's
Not
get that on the
trying.
record.
Yeah. Well, as I'm listening to you guys talk, I think I am a grandfather. I have 3 grown kids as well. My oldest is 25. My youngest is 21. Robert is older than I am, and vastly more experienced at this. But
Right.
all of us in the room, right? We're all past the stage of the toddler and the diapers, and we're past the teen angst, and we're into the sort of the reflective phase of life of looking at parenting. But a lot of our listeners are sort of, they're right now struggling to get the laundry caught up, or they're trying to figure out, should they homeschool, or is the public school safe, or they're in the middle of this. And I think it's helpful for them to hear some perspective from folks who've tried some things, some that worked, some that didn't. But at the end of the day, I think they need reassured it's going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
You're so right about needing the reassurance, and I think one of the things is we had the whole family over on Sunday, and Karina always gets out the family videos. We have a working VCR at our house.
Really?
Yeah, it hides in the closet. She knows how to plug it in.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
actually.
And it used to really hurt me when they put in the ones where they were toddlers, and because so much time has gone by, and it's the whole dad thing of like, even though I was there, I wasn't like absent. I was there. It just hurts. It's hard for me to watch because like, where did that go? And,
it's an ache.
And Chris is always reminding me, they're right here. It's them. That's that. And so I've gotten better about that. But I think the thing that what I do realize is I'm watching those videos and I see that the house and the backyard, how much life the house was filled with.
Mm-hmm.
The way that I would encourage younger parents is to say, just, yes, the laundry, yes, all of it, but definitely stop and look around. This is the absolute best thing that is happening right now. And it's not that the future is not good as well, because I love where we're at with our family right now. But looking back on those days, it was wonderful. And we were busy as all get out. We were as busy as any family could be, going in and out of town, always had a suitcase packed. But they were really, really magical times of being together as a family. And so I guess my encouragement is just that, is to stop and look, because it really doesn't get any better than when your kids are young. It was fun.
Yeah, I jotted a few notes down too, because I thought about, if people are listening to this who have young kids, if they've listened this far, then they really do want to know, what's the perspective that I could have, maybe just a piece of it. And so a couple of things that I would remind young parents of are that perfection is a myth. You can't do it perfectly. Let that go. And maybe 30% of good, if you parent well for 30% of the time, you're probably doing great.
I agree.
And your children are going to get the benefits.
Yes,
if you want to be technical about it. Remember that your kids have a kind of a genetic trajectory of their own. Their personality is kind of ingrained from birth. There's, some things that you can take credit for, but you can't take credit for all. They're good and bad qualities. They're just they're gonna grow up and be who they are, make their own decisions.
Their own people.
And deal with who they are, who God made them to be, and their propensities one way or the other. So I think I fell into the idea that everything I did, I had to do everything right because I was going to control all outcomes.
Right.
Whereas very few outcomes are.
Trying to shape the world into my own image.
Exactly.
Is kind of,
And I think maybe a lot of homeschoolers fall into that, thinking that if we do all the right things, we get all the right outcomes. And it just doesn't happen. Whether you choose the best Christian private school or
that's right.
Make sure your public school is safe. We just can't guarantee how our kids are, what their choices are going to be, and how that affects their own lives.
Right.
So true. And I agree with all those things. I think the thing that I look back, because I like you, Scott, like I look back at these videos. In fact, just today I saw an image of one of my daughters when she was like 4 years old. And I can't explain. It's not like I was sad, but there was this ache, like, oh my gosh. And I think the reason, to echo what you guys are saying, was that I know for a fact in my career days, it wasn't that I wasn't home because I made a point to be home. And it wasn't that I didn't tuck them in because I did tuck them in. It was just that I realize now, being older, how I wasn't present. Like I wasn't completely available. And you could make a good case for the fact that I was, because I didn't miss things. But I know that I wasn't fully engaged. And so I couldn't agree more that is one of the things that I regret the most. And actually, I think ultimately cost my marriage. But looking at my parenting, this idea of just being present is something that, I mean, I don't beat myself up. It's not this terrible regret, but if there was kind of helping younger parents, like stuff can wait and just be completely in the game when you're with them.
Yeah. I think I think we're all in total agreement. And the voice that I would say to the parents who are listening and maybe in the middle of the stress and the chaos of younger children or even teenagers is to not only be aware that this is a fantastic time in your life, but to actually have some fun. I think I was so uptight.
You still are. Yeah.
It's true.
Well, the fun comes.
I
The fun comes when you honestly believe that not only that you're in the moment and that you're not constantly grasping out there.
Right.
For what's next? What do I have to plan? Or what am I doing wrong? Or in the past, what mistakes have I made? Trying to really be in the moment, which I think is very difficult for human beings.
It is, period. It's a discipline. It's not.
But I think it's harder for Christians, honestly.
Yeah.
As a pastor, I can tell you, we get uptight. Yeah. I mean, we hold on tight, man. This whole idea of grace is really not as accepted as we'd like to think it is.
You're so right. Why can't we live grace? That's
absolutely.
Exactly
Well, because he's supposed to have all the answers.
Exactly.
He signed up.
But he signed up to have the gospel of grace be everything he lived for.
Right, but he just admitted not understanding it. So
I don't either.
He's in big trouble.
Yeah, so, I'm a failed pastor as well as a parent.
I'm glad we could get to the bottom of some things.
Yeah,
exactly.
We'll just get straight
really
to the
important
punchline.
episode.
I had another thought, which is rare for me, but and it's that in terms of hoping to remind younger parents, is that you are parenting from a whether we're all first time parents when we're first time parents, and I used to remind my kids we didn't have any rehearsal children. This is the show, So if you think that's not fair or somebody's getting we're making this crap up.
This is improv.
This is all. Yeah, we're just going for it. All right. So sorry about that not fair thing. I'll just remind you what my mother said. Life isn't fair. She was actually right. Okay, but so we're parenting from a place, and often Christina and I notice we're totally parenting from a reactive place. We talked about it before, the whole safety thing and all that stuff. And my parenting came from a place of like my whole story is I grew up in a house with a mom and dad that stayed together, but I grew up with a father that didn't say anything. I used to make up fatherly advice. My dad always said nothing. Yeah. I mean, it's funny, but if I'm not laughing, I'm crying.
No, man,
I mean,
that's so true.
When I was about 15, like the image for me that I always talked about was like, as I've done a lot of father work, the image for me was that my dad dropped me off on the corner. Like we're riding in the car, and it was about 15. He like pulled over and was like, "Sorry, pal, this is where you get out." I got nothing left because he didn't have any tools to talk to a 15-year-old artistic,
it wasn't
sensitive young man.
It wasn't intentionally. He was just.
He loved me. He just didn't know what to say.
Yeah.
And so my reaction to that was I used to joke that my son would someday be in a support group of sons of fathers who wouldn't shut the heck up, because I was just always in his room. And so my whole thing, my overreaction to my father not saying anything is I said everything all the time. And my son appreciates it to a point,
Right.
Now that he's almost 27, we joke about it, but it was constant. I remember one night walking into his room, I guess he was around 14, and I'm picking stuff up and looking at it. And he's like, "Dad?" I said, "What?" He goes, "We about to talk about sex again?" I was like, "Funny you should ask." We are, and he's like, "Oh, all right, can we just do it then? Just get it over with." All right, so, and I know, Chris, how would you? Because we've talked about reactive parenting a lot. How do you think your reactive parenting manifested?
Well, I thought I was just going to be so intentional with everything my children read and everything they watched or didn't watch on television. And recently I was talking with my middle daughter, Karina, she's 24 now, right?
Yeah.
And she reminded me of all the historical fiction that she read that instilled all of these fears in her, like she knew way too much about the world.
Like the one girl got scarlet fever.
Yeah.
And she thought she had it once.
She was sure she had scarlet fever. And I realized, ta-da, there is you, just like you thought your mom let you watch anything that was on television, from Brady Bunch to Love American Style, without thinking about it. I thought, oh, if she's reading historical fiction for children, it should be fine.
At least she's reading.
Yeah,
So,
she's reading. Yeah.
I saw my blind spot, and then I thought, yeah, you just can't figure it out.
And it's so much like you're talking about grace, and also Christine, what you said about this. If you're doing 30% right, I mean, just have some grace for yourself, because
It feels a little low to me. You guys do whatever. 30?
Well, I checked with Karina, our master's in social work to be, today, because she told me about this thing she learned called the circle of security. And
what is that?
it is the idea that you are a landing place for your children to come back to you when they get hurt or when they need to organize their feelings. You help them organize their feelings. And you also are a place to send them out from, a solid base to send out from, and a solid landing place. And I said, what was the percentage you told me if I wanted to talk about that today? And she said, well, if 30% of the time when your child is discombobulated and you don't just hand them a French fry or tell them to sit in front of the TV, but you actually help them sit and organize their feelings, that's enough to do good work. And I thought, that's a great thing for parents to hear.
Yeah, it is.
Because that's about what's happening here. I'm not doing it 100%, but I am available and helping my child, a young child in this case, to organize their feelings and to talk about what's going on with them and why they're crying.
Yeah.
And I think parents instinctually do that. A lot of us.
I agree. And I think that, it's important to take inventory of where we're at as parents and stuff. But I like, if you say, how did you do as a parent? I go to the negative, like, immediately. I'm so easy to, like, I can ramble off all the things I did wrong. But I don't reflect much on, like, hey, what are things that are anchoring and what have been good things? And so maybe it would be good for parents to, like, pay attention to those things too. What is working? Because we get I'm fear-based and shame-based on myself. And so I'm going to ask you guys, what do you think is something that you guys did good as parents?
Like we mentioned earlier, the talking.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was a lot of just honesty coming from the parents. We learned to say, I'm sorry, as much as we said, I love you.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I love you doesn't cut it. Sometimes you got to be honest and say, I made a mistake.
I think there's a built-in, as far as your children are concerned, I think there's a built-in I love you when you say I'm sorry. I think I think dads especially don't apologize to their kids enough. Because they have to be the solid one. They have to be right. They have to be the pillar. It's not always for a bad reason, but they perceive that they have to be strong in a way that I'm sorry doesn't really work with that. If you apologize to your kids, you will build a future with them. I feel like we navigated so much because we showed our kids that we weren't right all the time, and we told them we knew we weren't right all the time. And as far as just communication goes, navigating the teen years with a son, with a young man, is really tricky. And being in men's groups, for me, I have to say it was the hugest thing for navigating those years with my son. The first time I ever realized that Julian was looking at things he shouldn't be looking at on the internet, I took him out. For pizza, and then we went and saw what's the Jack Black movie? Nacho Libre. Gosh, we laughed so hard when the demon dwarves came in there. Okay, but anyway, I took him out, and it was a big night out, but I had something heavy I wanted to talk to him about. So at the pizza place, I told him, hey, I found something on the computer. Here's the consequences of that for right now. No computer for this period of time. And I said, and also I just wanted to welcome you. He said, welcome me to what? I said, to the fraternity of men. Every man's struggle. Every man deals with what, and he was just stunned. He was looking at me, and I said,
that is huge.
And he talks about it. I said, in that conversation, I said, what I intend to do with you as my son, and from here on in, I said, I don't ever want to I said, everybody's carrying a backpack. Here's the image I'll give to you. We're all carrying a backpack. And I want to put things in there that are nourishing to you. I want to put things for the journey. I never want to put rocks in your backpack. I never want to put shame or anything that will weigh you down on the journey, because it's going to get hard enough as it is. And you're going to have to find people to walk with you alongside you to help you shoulder that backpack. And so right now, I want to just remind you that you're in the brotherhood. You're a man, and you're going to deal with this the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And remind you that I have, and all my friends, all the guys that you know, all my friends deal with it too. And it was a turning point. It was a starting point, but it was also a turning point for our relationship. And we talk about it every once in a while. Like I said, he's almost 27 now. And that was a big deal to him that I didn't. Now, have I shamed my son before? Of course.
Of course.
Not ever wanting to or meaning to, but I'm a sarcastic guy. I can be cutting, and I can do all kinds of damage with my words. But I got it right that day.
That's really good.
And we navigated a lot because of that. And he has said since, at least my dad always told me the truth about his own failings. And so I feel like that's, to answer your question of earlier, that's one of the things I got right at that point in time.
That's a great story, because it's not sweeping under the rug. There's still a consequence, but it's also going, man, welcome. That's such good language, because it is like you're welcoming into like the struggle, not just for men. It could be anything. It could be, eating disorder. It could be whatever it is. It's just, you're not weird because you looked at porn. You're not weird because you deal with eating disorders. You're not outcast. You're part of the human condition. I think it's great, man. Awesome.
Yeah, I was just listening and thinking, there's a big difference between making an apology the way I used to and the way that I've learned to as a dad. I used to say, if I offended you, I'm sorry. Or if that offended you. I've learned to say, I screwed up. Will you forgive me for that? Instead of sort of ducking behind the shield of, well, that was just your perception of what I did versus what I did was actually wrong. I've noticed that parents, and I'm watching now as a grandfather, they really feel as if every day is almost a make or break. Like I've watched my grandson and my daughter and son-in-law, they really feel the pressure that this child has to sleep on their stomach without a pillow, or they could suffocate.
Or they will.
Or they will suffocate.
Yeah.
And I don't mean any disrespect to them at all, but
the
internet has given them too much information. And so the fear idea has really gripped millennials because they can access information on anything instantly. And it's too much for them to process. And you are robbed then of that ability to be present in the moment. You're robbed of that idea of enjoying this journey together. And I wanted to just ask you a little bit about your blog, because you're talking about this idea that we're in a story and that there's purpose to all this. And it's not just you're on a toboggan to hell, like there's, you can steer this thing a little bit. It's not just out of control. Tell our audience a little bit about your blog and what you're doing with that, Christine.
My blog is based on the idea that we write our own medicine. It's for myself. It's reminding me that there is life in the bigger story. I can't live in this tiny little fear story that comes at me through the news every day.
Yeah.
That's why you stopped reading the news, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I love being in the know. I want to know everything, but it's killing me.
Yeah.
And it's killing our kids. I get very emotional about it.
No, I get it. It's overwhelming. The news is not, and it's,
yeah, it's too much.
We could go
yeah,
off on
it's
that
too
for
much.
a long time.
The idea of fasting media, the idea of just pulling back from the noise. You guys don't know this, but I'm a big road tripper. I have a blog called Road Trip Parenting. And one of the things that I've learned over the years is I have to get away from the culture. And I usually go climb a mountain, literally go climb a mountain.
Wow.
Or I go to a lake that you can drink the water. That I go as far from the intensity of life as I can. And Jesus did that, right? Like he would constantly withdraw from these crazy 12 guys that he was trying to disciple. And as parents, I think we feel like we can't ever take a break. Like if we're not there, 24/7, 365. Something terrible will happen.
Yep.
And I just want to give permission to parents who are burned out, that are worn out, that are weary, that you can take a break. Grandma and grandpa, this is not their first rodeo. They can take a couple of days of screaming and upset kids. And, to invest that time, not only in your marriage, but in yourself, is probably the greatest advice I could give.
I like that.
As a young parent right now.
It's funny, our son, Chris and Julian, have had a wonderful relationship all these years, but he's a grown man now, and he's very busy, and he just doesn't reach out as much as Chris would like, just straight up, just doesn't.
Well, he's a guy,
right?
Yeah,
and
that's
so,
not,
but it hurts, but it hurts, right? It hurts,
Yeah.
And so recently, Chris said that much, and he responded, kind of like a guy, like, "Oh, I thought the amount I was reaching out was the appropriate amount," and it was. So it wasn't. "Oh, I'm so sorry, I'll do better." It was. However, so they're pregnant. They're about to have their first in April, and we were joking about like, "Oh, just wait till that baby comes. He'll be reaching out left and right." Well, literally last weekend we had dinner with he and his wife, and he pretty much said, "So when the baby comes, like, you're going to help, right?"
Exactly.
I mean, that was pretty much it, right?
Well, I offered, and then he said, "Oh, good," because I was hoping.
Yeah. So I just kind of made a little mental note, like, yeah, the reaching out
it comes around.
it'll happen automatically.
But I think our son has a lot of energy. He has a limited amount of emotional energy, and having a wife is where he wants to channel it, and that is exactly as it should be.
Yeah.
I totally understand.
Oh,
that.
yeah.
But
You just miss him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He did start calling
Wow.
me, by the way, after that every week. So
That's that. Yeah.
he wants to talk to
He's an
me.
Enneagram 4. That same. Oh,
Oh, there you go.
Talk about
Yeah,
Enneagram.
Enneagram. Let's dive into that.
Let's not. That's a whole other thing, isn't it?
I think we're gonna have to wrap up.
I think
I have the sense we could go a long time.
I think we could.
Oh, we can talk forever.
Yeah,
But, yeah.
there's some good stuff here, though. This is real life, and this is how it really goes down. And for parents, I just want to say that there is a community of faith in every church. There are people like Scott and Christine in every church in America. If you are willing to ask for help, if you don't have parents nearby, or you're estranged, or you just feel isolated and alone, reach out, ask for some help, get into a community of faith, because there are people who've been there before and can encourage and support, and in practical ways be an assistant to you. So that is one of the aspects of life that I didn't do well. I was not willing to. I was too proud. I didn't like to ask for help. And I know Robert's too proud too. So
I would fit that category.
would you fit that?
I think we're all too proud.
I think the three of you we're very proud. And I'm glad that you're finally confessing on microphone.
Yeah,
I would end up by saying as well, maybe that was your closing remarks, but parenting is the best job anyone will ever, it's the best job you'll ever have. And you should probably be fired from it occasionally, but you won't be.
Right.
You know, you got to
For
get
better
back
or
up
worse.
for better or worse. But because once you're a parent, you really are always a parent. You just got to keep chipping away at it. But it's a great job.
Yeah, it is.
Thank you guys so much for spending time with us. And Christine, how do people find out about your blog?
Well, it's Christine Dente outofthegray.com.
There you go.
And it's also called Finding Life in the Bigger Story.
Awesome.
What a great title. She must be a lyricist,
Little poetic.
a songwriter. Yeah.
Must be.
Well, thanks for tuning in, everyone. This is nearing the end of season 5 of Brilliantly Brave Parenting, and Robert and I will be right back here next week to taunt each other and to encourage you to be better parents under the grace of God.
See you next week.
Bye-bye.
Be encouraged, parents. You are not alone. In Paul's letter to his son in the faith, Timothy, he writes, "But I am not ashamed, for I know whom I have believed, and I am convinced that he is able to guard until that day what has been entrusted to me." Brilliantly Brave Parenting wants to be an encouragement and support that parents can rely on. Would you consider liking us and sharing us with a friend? As a part of the Tween Gospel Alliance, we are a nonprofit organization dependent on the support of friends like you. Thanks for stopping by. We'll be right here next week.
What our kids believe is going to define them for a lifetime. According to George Barna, by the age of 13, what a kid believes is what he'll die believing. For parents and for pastors, that's a frightening experience, especially if you've got an 11 or 12-year-old. At the I Shine Ministries headquarters, this became a huge priority in the last year. We partnered with the Tween Gospel Alliance to bring you a brand new resource known as the Shock and Awe Study Guide. And I'm here with one of the co-founders of this entire program, Robert Beeson. Can you tell us, what is the Shock and Awe Study Guide?
It is awesome. More than that? Yeah. Okay. The Shock and Awe Study Guide is a super cool thing that either a parent can do with their kid, or a youth pastor can do with their students, or a children's pastor can do with their students. And here's the cool thing about it. It is apologetics for kids. So it's the really huge evidence and thoughts of apologetics wrapped in a way that is really tangible and simple for kids to understand, answering 4 primary questions. And they are, what if there's a God? What if the Bible is true? What if Jesus is who he said he was? And what if I'm part of that plan? And we believe if you can answer those 4 questions and you are drawn through evidence proving those 4 questions, that really it's gonna establish a pretty unshakable foundation of faith.
That sounds very helpful, especially if you're a parent or pastor and you're concerned about the condition of your child's faith, what they believe, what the voices of culture are telling them. If that's you and you're interested, go to ishinelive.com and check out in our web store the Shock and Awe Study Guide. It has a digital cloud video base, so it's 4 studies in a small paperback volume for $9, and it has 4 videos that go with 4 studies. It can be done in a weekend, it can be done over a month, or it can be done bi-monthly, however you need it. It is a fantastic resource that I have used as a pastor in my own home church, and I have been impressed. So check it out.
Check it out.
Well, we're very excited to announce a partnership with the guys that we know from Boise, Idaho, Robert.
Yes, we are. New release today. They're fantastic. Very, very relevant for what's going on. If you want to discover new music in the Christian realm, that's kind of the only place to go.
Yeah, and not only do they have amazing music and amazing reviews and just a lot of information about Christian artists, but they are creating with us a brand new devotional product. Call it IRL Resources.
Do you know what that stands for, Brad?
I found out.
You did? What does it stand for?
It stands for In Real Life.
That's exactly right, Brad. Very good. In real life, because a lot of times we have these standard devotionals that we see, and we thought that it would be kind of cool to use their expertise in Christian music, couple that with actual scriptural and devotional thought that digs you deeper, not only into the song, but incorporates it into real life. And so it's a very vibrant and very awesome resource for families and for pastors.
Yeah, and so if you have a preteen or a teen in your home and you're looking for a new devotional to do weekly, we have a digital subscription online at irlresources.com. It's very inexpensive. The first study is free to check it out. There's nothing to lose. You should go there and see what's the latest thing in Christian devotional.
Absolutely. You won't regret it.